Enough fanning around. Okay, I'm going to read. I almost started into a long diatribe soapbox thing, and I'd probably run out of memory. But fortunately, I was like, oh, I haven't read yet tonight. So, got to put Countryman to sleep out there on the East Coast. All right. Repercussions. Sorry, departures, part two. Those. Repercussions continue to reverberate between Denver and Mexico City over last week's battle outside of the northern Mexican town of Ciudad Juarez between Texan and New Mexican National Guard units. Texas Rangers and groups thought to be comprised of Villas Raiders and Aztlan revolutionaries. Several areas on the western side of the city were severely damaged in the fighting. Mexican President Vicente Fox has demanded that President Bush immediately stop all cross-border activities by U.S. forces, or he will be forced to instruct the Mexican army to neutralize future cross-border incursions by what he has termed New Mexican and Texan adventurers. President Bush, after meeting with the governors of the border states yesterday, released a statement this morning attempting to ameliorate the state of tension between the southwestern U.S. states and Mexico. We should give diplomacy a chance to lower the tension between our nations before our ability to trade under the terms of the North American Free Trade Agreement are compromised. When asked for comment, the governor of New Mexico replied, "We'll be happy to trade with anyone just as soon as we've hanged the bandits who are preying on it." The governor of Texas declined comment pending a closed-door meeting of the Texas legislature today. In other domestic news, Energy Secretary Robert Hayes announced today that emergency shipment of home heating oil would be increased to the northern tier and New England states as the record-breaking cold of the asteroid impact winter weather continues unabated. Priority on road and rail shipments have been given to these areas following the loss of the Great Lake ports due to the inability to keep the St. Lawrence Seaway free of ice. Department of Transportation spokespersons indicate that supplemental ice-breaking ships and machinery are being rushed to the area, but scarcity of such equipment due to the global nature of the problem is hampering the effort. Minnesota National Guard troops are continuing their house-to-house efforts to locate stranded and freezing residents in need of evacuation in the wake of yesterday's record-breaking blizzard. Snowfall this winter in that state has exceeded all others since records were first kept there. Army Corps of Engineers representatives testified before Congress today in Denver that they expect to have most Mississippi River ports cleared of debris from Memphis nearly to the sunken city of New Orleans, which will allow the many oil terminals there to begin receiving shipments again as the oil companies are able to bring them back online. Work on the terminals themselves has been hampered by the severe winter weather. Some grain shipments are already being received. Internationally, Saudi Arabia announced today that it had reached agreement with the United Arab Emirates, Sudan, Syria, and Libya on what they are calling a set of common cause accords, though details of what are in these accords were not released. Official representatives from Egypt, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Pakistan attended but have not indicated if they will also sign on to the accords. Unofficial representatives from Jordan, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and Indonesia also attended. The State Department declined comment pending receipt of details about the nature of the accord. Radio Moscow announced today that a skirmish broke out along the Russian-Chinese border in a densely forested area of the port city of Vladivostok. Chinese army officials indicated that the matter was nothing more than a large patrol becoming lost and inadvertently crossing the border. Russian army officials in Vladivostok state the Chinese crossed the border in force and were repulsed. Russia and China have had a long history of skirmishes along their many thousand-mile border. Increases in border skirmishes usually reflect increasing tension between those two nations, which heretofore have had a long period of quiet. People's Liberation Army officials in Beijing stated the responsible commander would be severely disciplined for his carelessness. Also in Asia today, Philippine Navy officials report increasing frequencies of skirmishes between Chinese gunboats and armed fishing vessels in the Spratly Islands. The Philippine government is sending naval reinforcements to the area as tensions increase. The Vietnamese government has also sent and opened the door, and Luke climbed into the jump seat in the back. Then his wife loaded up. I had to drag him away from his dictation again, she sighed. You should see his office. The doctor grinned ruefully. I'm afraid the profession of medicine is practiced nearly as much on paper as it is in the clinic or operating room. I see my scheduled patients in the clinic or the OR, emergency patients on an as-necessary basis, and in the cracks I have to keep up with the paperwork. Somewhere in there I sleep, eat, and have a life. With the economy being the way it is, the hospital has had to cut the housekeeping staff to the bone, so non-vital areas like offices don't get cleaned much. Anne laughed. That's the truth. While I was badgering him to stop, I went around his office picking up cups, wrappers, napkins, plates, and some stuff that I couldn't identify, and dumped it all in his office trash can, and then dumped it in the can out in the hall. Well, anyway, I'm glad we're on the way home now. My office has been freezing. They've cut the maximum temperature down to 66 and would cut it down further if it wouldn't cause condensation problems in the computers. I sleep with 2 pairs of socks on in the dorm. I don't think I've been warm all week. John grinned. Well, the girls said they were going to whomp up a mighty pot of beans and bread for supper tonight. Heather's really getting this sourdough thing down. We had sourdough pancakes for breakfast this morning, which reminds me, we're about out of syrup, so I want to stop at the grocery and see what they've got. Likely won't have any real cane syrup, but plain old table syrup will do for the kids. We need more hot sauce too. Beans we've got. Condiments we're running short on. Luke said, that's serious. I like beans well enough, but I need Tabasco to get them down. We'd better stock up. John pulled away from the health center, spinning his tires slightly at the uphill light onto Archer Road, but quickly getting traction enough to move forward. He was getting more experience at driving on snow and ice than he'd ever wanted. 3 miles down Archer Road, he pulled into the parking lot of the Albertsons supermarket there. There were only 3 miles down Archer Road, he pulled into the parking lot of the Albertsons supermarket. Period. There were only half a dozen cars to be seen. He stared at the front of the building, no longer boarded up, but well lit and open for business. We haven't been in here since before the impact. Last time I really noticed the place was that riot happened here the night we brought Mel home from the hospital. You can still see a few bullet holes over there by the windows. The doctor scrutinized the building, then said, you can see bullet holes. I remember that riot. The police were afraid it was getting out of hand when it spread across the street to the neighboring shopping center. First we knew of it was when several truckloads of troops pulled up to secure the hospital. Captain Swift was not a pleasant man to be sure, but he did keep things from getting too far out of hand in the early days. All right, good night. And that is going to be it for the night because I want to do another video. Good night. Bye-bye. Hallelujah. Take it easy. Pasta lasagna. Ciao.